Welcome, everyone. This is the Jenkins Governance Board meeting. Today is the 14th of April, 2025. Thanks for being here. We've got relatively few topics on the agenda. Are there any topics that anyone needs to add beyond the ones that are already in the document? So I've got one at the tail here that I haven't completed the typing on yet, but I'll discuss it when we get there. Software in the public interest funds. All right, then let's go ahead. Okay, so upcoming calendar, weekly release tomorrow, 2.506. LTS, our release candidate, will be out Wednesday. Chris Stern is the release lead. Thanks, Chris, very much for being the release lead. You can review the release checklist here. Chris uses that checklist very capably, is preparing the backporting pull request now. The backporting candidates and selected are listed here, and you see just 2 candidates for backport. And I like that. Now it's the 2 candidates actually cover 3 or 4 total pull requests, but we should see that release candidate Wednesday with a final release 2 weeks from Wednesday. Next major event, we've got Open Source Summit North America and CDCon in June in Denver, Colorado. Basil and I plan to attend that. I'm speaking at it, and we'll meet with sponsors at that session. Any questions or comments on upcoming calendar? Okay, so next topic then. Today is the last day to submit nominations for the 2025 Jenkins Awards. Please read the blog post. You can get the instructions on how to do that. I know I've still got to submit my nominations. The rules are described there, the voting process, etc. On action items, so we've got an attribution entries for the downloads page. Based on a draft PR. Basil, anything you want to report on that one?
No, nothing since last time.
Okay. And Contributor Summit blog posts, I'm embarrassed to say I've done nothing on this. I will do it because I need to do it as part of the CDF status report that's already overdue. I need to do those 2. I will get them done. The last one, the one that I'm actually proud to say I'm doing very well on, is tracking reimbursements for SPI funded attendees. Everyone that had been funded by SPI has been reimbursed, except we haven't received a submission yet from Jan Farachik. We've got just over $3,000 left at SPI. SPI would like us to use those funds to the benefit of Jenkins. And so I'm open to suggestions of ways that you can see that we could use those funds that would benefit the Jenkins project. I've got one suggestion for the end of our meeting, but others are certainly welcomed. And I owe a further definition of sponsorship tiers. Any questions on any of the action items? Okay, next topic then is on community activity. The community plugin maintainers proposal was sent out mid-February, and it's been receiving active comments from various people. You're certainly encouraged to review it and make comments. Thanks very much to Daniel Beck for his comments. Thanks to Vadik Follonier for his, to Olivier Lamy. Those are all much appreciated. We're intending to take this thing forward and do a beta test. We know that we've got one project that will be coming up this year, Java 25, that will likely require a sweep across all the plugins. Jakarta EE9 sweep. No, did I say that wrong, Basil? I think it's Jakarta EE10, isn't it?
I don't think you said it wrong, but that sweep is finished. And
Right. So
the reason it went so smoothly was that we have been doing a good job of keeping plugins up to date in the top 250.
good. All right. So I can just change it to past tense. Perfect. Thanks. Good. All right. So the idea for me is I intend to, since I'm the one who's written that up, I intend to take a small group and try to do a beta test of it, of the process with one community plugin maintenance project. Figure out what are the tooling changes we need, what are the development standards we should use, how should we work together to make this thing succeed. We've got several different candidate ideas that we'll work through as this small team, try to decide, and then start making progress on it. Any questions, comments, or concerns on the community plugin maintainers proposal? Okay, then let's go on to governance topics. So JFrog Artifact Storage Reduction Project has been an area of intense focus. Thanks to Darren Pope for his work on it. What happened was JFrog reported several months ago that our storage use had increased dramatically to upwards of 11 terabytes in their storage. And they said, hey, you need to get below 5. So Vladek Folonier agreed that Darren Pope could be granted permissions temporarily to be allowed to administer the thing to bring us down. And he's done it successfully. We're now just under 4 terabytes used by changing the policy on what we cache and don't cache. Specifically, we were caching much more of Atlassian's public repository than we really needed for the Jenkins project. And that was bloating our storage use dramatically. So that's been fixed. Darren's also preparing us to delete some additional unused cache, and that those unused caches will save even more space. Oleg, you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that if further reduction is needed, the proposal on the velocity sponsorship still remains on the table. So it's a follow-up from the discussion we had a month ago or last time. So I just checked on our side, we potentially have a budget for Jenkins. But again, it requires some step from Jenkins infra team or governance board if you want to do it. We had a kind of initial discussion with Damia to take a look in 2025. Yeah, I just wanted to say because the velocity also does caching of dependencies. So basically for CI purposes or even for local development purposes, we could reduce JFrog usage even further.
Okay, so there it's because it's the dependency caching facility of Develocity, right? That would be
Yeah,
the
dependency to also just removing some bits of the builds completely from Maven, because if it's in a remote cache, it doesn't have to be rebuilt. It's open question whether you want to do it for production artifacts or for release pipeline, but for CI you certainly can do. So I don't have metrics for Jenkins, of course. We have never built a Jenkins at scale, but for Apache Foundation, yeah, it was a magnitude less traffic going from their Jenkins instances.
okay, could you say it again? So Apache reduced their bandwidth significantly.
Yeah, I don't have exact number right now. I need to check, but yeah, it was an order of magnitude. For the
Great.
projects they have where they have the velocity enabled, it's around 40 projects at the moment.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, I'm just putting it on the table, but well, it's great that JFrog's requirement is met. So it's
Well,
definitely not
and
for
I've still got to
emergency.
have the discussion with JFrog. Melissa
Yeah.
Melissa McKay just got back in town last week, and so I've got to have more discussion with them to see are there more requirements they have. So I like the idea that hey, there might be things we could do with the velocity that would reduce bandwidth use. That's an interesting thought. Good, thank you.
It's no
Anything else
problem.
on artifact storage reduction? Okay, let's go next to cloud expenses and plans. And this is one that I'm going to give the board more details than you may have wanted and accept that I think you need to know the details so that you're aware in case in case we face problems in the future. So first, what the current situation is, we've got a Microsoft Azure sponsorship with 40K, a little over $40,000 remaining in the donation that will expire at the end of May. And we won't know if they will renew it and add more funds to it until the end of April. That's their calendar year, their budgeting process. So these funds would disappear end of May if we don't use them, whether or not we use them. AWS, the sponsorship of the 60K they donated, there's 36K remaining. They last until 2027, so plenty of time, but only 36K in the budget to use. DigitalOcean, we've got 14,500, and CDF continues to fund us at 60,000 a year. So those are our situations. We had moved ci.jenkins.io from Azure to AWS in order to use AWS credits. That was successful, but we've realized now that we need to not leave this money idle. So we've moved ci.jenkins.io back to Azure for the month of April and May so that we can make use of these funds before they expire. We've also alerted CDF that we're going to reduce our monthly spend on theirs by moving other resources to places like DigitalOcean so that we can save that money for later in this calendar year. So that's just a delay of the expenses, not a change of the fact that we will use them. We will use the CDF sponsorship. It's just we're going to lower short-term costs on CDF by increasing our use of DigitalOcean. Then the other is Basil and I are actively going to meet with sponsors at CDCon in June to try to persuade them and encourage them to continue sponsoring the Jenkins project. Mila Zhao of AWS will be there, and Michael Scavato of Microsoft will both be there. Representatives from CDF will be there as well. So we've got plans to try to keep this. If things went absolutely worst case, where Microsoft doesn't renew and Amazon gives us no additional funds, we've got enough infra funds in these buckets to carry us through until about September. Then we've got to find other funding sources. So that's the scenario. Now the Jenkins budget itself has about 15,000 in it right now, if I remember right. So that would fund us at current AWS spend rates of 6K per month. That would fund us for another 2 months. And those are the kinds of options we've got. So those are the actions the infra team is taking, just so that you're aware. I don't see any immediate action that the board needs to take other than being aware that we very much need our sponsors and we need them to continue sponsoring us. So the actual details of the funding are included in the document. Any questions or concerns there? Okay, so the next question is again related to funds, and this is one that I hadn't framed yet fully. It's software in the public interest has that $3,000 that's available. Fund one question for the board here is, could we ask for 800 of that to fund Basil's registration at Open Source Summit Europe or Open Source Summit North America? There's an $800 registration fee in addition to the travel. And my thought was, okay, that's a place where we'll be looking for donors. Maybe the board should choose to fund it. Another alternative would be we could attempt to find a way to use the $3,000 for cloud funding. That's more complicated because finding a way to pay these cloud providers becomes challenging. It's whose credit card do we use, etc. Comments, questions, concerns?
Why do we need to pay for the commercial conference? So with all the respect to the Linux Foundation, Open Source Summit is a commercial conference. There is still little community agenda there, so it's not like FOSDEM. While I understand the intent and principle, we already have 2 people going to the conference, right? So yeah, for me, from the community perspective, it's not clear why it would be justified, but I also don't have a strong opinion why it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, so my sense was, my worry was if I get resistance or friction from others saying, hey, we don't want to pay for Basil's registration at Open Source Summit, then that would risk him not being able to attend. And that was my thought.
So CloudBees doesn't pay, right?
That's what I don't know yet. I've got to double check my
Okay.
budget. That's why I brought it here. Because my registration is covered by the fact that I'm a speaker. So I didn't have to pay the registration fee because I'm an accepted speaker. Other comments?
Do we have any other events coming up next year that we'd want to use the money for? Like, do we anticipate another FOSDEM situation similar to the last 2 years where we want other people to travel? If
So
the answer is
yes,
yes, then that could, but then that raises the question of how much time do we have to spend these SPI funds?
right. And that was the thing. Their request was they wanted to complete the use of the funds by end of calendar 2025. But I could certainly ask them, could we extend it into, say, March of 2026? So I think that's the most attractive if we could do that, if there would ask SPI if they would extend until March of 2025, because then we will use all the funds, right? The FOSDEM this year we used $5,000 to fund travel to FOSDEM, and we would easily use the remaining 3,000 next year.
Yeah, that seems like the highest return on investment of those funds from my perspective.
Okay, good.
But contingent on SPI being okay with it.
Right. And if they are unwilling, then we look for other ways to use those funds that will benefit the project. Good. All right. And it may be possible to use it for cloud funding. It's just the complication of setting up credit cards, etc., for a one-time use of $3,000 may be more than we're really getting the benefit we want out of it.
And it still covers fraction of our budget if there is no funding from elsewhere.
Right. Yep. Good. Okay, so let me take that. We'll take this one as our first choice, and I'm going to move this one as second choice. The use the 3,000 for cloud funding, and then if that doesn't work out, we've still got the option to further discuss should we use the funding for conferences. The other place we've got a conference coming is Bruno attending Open Source Summit Europe.
Yeah, but you never know. I could have a proposal accepted and become a
Right.
speaker.
If your talk is accepted, then no registration cost. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm on the program committee, but I cannot tell anything.
Right.
Well, the
Understood.
CFP is still open until the end of the day. Well, end of tomorrow, actually. So if
Right.
anyone wants to go, the best approach is to actually submit more talks.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Any other topics for today?
I wanted to quickly discuss JSOC logistics, but I think it is better to do it asynchronously with Chris.
Okay.
She is not around, so yeah, I guess it's not the best time to discuss.
Yeah. So discussion with Chris is is certainly the best. Chris
Yeah.
plus Bruno even better.
Bruno, I included. He's just here, but yeah,
Right.
we also need Chris. Yeah. So maybe just quick update from our side. We are still looking into Gradle toolchain recovery, and yes, we might have a JSOC project together with one or two other companies interested in that. Apparently, there are still companies using Gradle plugins to build internal plugins for Jenkins. And they were also impacted by the current situation of the compatibility. So yes, hopefully we will have it as a part of GSOC or not. But yeah, it's still to be seen, because in the Kotlin Foundation we got more than 200 proposals. It's definitely not well, and we have 12 project ideas. So I'm not sure what is Jenkins numbers, but yeah, I'm just sharing.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, so yeah, for Gradle project ideas, I'm not sure how many we will be able to take, because there are also Bazel, there is also Bazel like build system, also Gradle, Kotlin, language server protocols. So there is a bunch of them. But yeah, hopefully we will have some decision next month.
Great. All right. Any other topics? Okay, thanks then.
Maybe,
Let's go
yeah,
ahead.
maybe just correction for the notes. It's 200 draft proposals.
Ah,
It's a
right.
bit less that final ones, but yeah, it's still 3 digits.
It's a lot of proposals.
Yeah, working on that.
All right.